Let's start with the part nobody puts in the marketing. There's a dataset of 1,500 cyclists who walked into a bike fit studio. Here's what they walked in with: 29% reach low back pain, 21% read numb hands, 19% knee pain, 14% neck, 11% numb feet. Now, you might be thinking those are amateurs, bad positions. Pros don't have that problem. They have it worse. Quick context on why I'm the one telling you this: 100 plus triathlons, 31 Ironman finishes. One of them was the World Championship in Kona. And in almost 16 of putting my body through this, I've watched a lot of people buy speed, and very few of them earn it. I'm not a bike fitter. I'm the guy who spent almost 2 decades finding out the expensive way, which parts of this sport are systems and which parts are marketing. Let's dive in. A study of 109 professional road cyclists found 58% had low back pain in the previous 12 months. 41% went to a doctor about it. 36% had anterior knee pain. And when they tracked injuries that actually cost race days, 57% were knee. These are people whose entire job is riding a bicycle with a team car and a soigneur and a fitter on retainer. So here's where I have to be straight with you, because there's a version of this video where I tell you a bike fit prevents injuries and you click off feeling great. That's not what the research says. A 2021 systematic review looked for a link between specific bike measurements and overuse injury, saddle height, knee angle, knee over pedal spindle, all of it, and found no strong evidence for any of them individually. What it did find moderate evidence for was this: overuse symptoms track with training load and with already having symptoms, which sounds like it undercuts my whole argument. It doesn't. It sharpens it. Because here's what that finding actually means. There's no single magic number that saves your knee. There's a position, the whole system of it, that determines whether the 10 hours a week you're putting through your body accumulate as fitness or as damage. Fit isn't a vaccine. It's the difference between load and overload. Okay, injury is the argument that gets your attention. Performance is the argument that actually moves people. 2025 study, recreational cyclists. They tested peak power and FTP, then got a professional fit, then tested again. 6-second peak power, 952 watts, up to 1,034, 8.6%. 20-minute FTP, 190 up to 199, 4.6%. Torque up. Rated perceived exertion, down. Discomfort, down. Read that again. More power at a lower perceived effort. That is the definition of free speed. But here's the detail that matters most, and this is the one I want you to hold on to. The size of the improvement correlated with the size of the adjustment. The riders who were the most wrong got the most back, which means if you've never had a real fit, you are statistically likely to be the person in that study with the most to gain, not the least. Now let's go back to that 90%. Air resistance doesn't scale with speed. It scales with the cube of speed. Double your speed, you need 8 times the power just to fight the air. The metric that governs this is CDA, drag coefficient times frontal area. It's the number that decides how much of your power turns into speed instead of turbulence. Sitting on the hoods, a typical rider is somewhere around 0.30 to 0.35. In the drops, 0.26 to 0.30. In a proper aero tuck, around 0.22. Every hundredth of CDA you remove is worth about 3 to 5 watts at 40 kilometers an hour. Now watch this. Moving from the hoods to the drops, a change that costs $0, is worth 4 to 5 hundredths of CDA. That's 15 to 20 watts at 35 kilometers per hour. An aero helmet, 5 to 10 watts. A skin suit, 3 to 8. Deep wheels, real, but they live in the half a hundredth to 2 hundredths range each. One positional change is worth more than your entire equipment budget. Narrow your elbows by 5 to 8 centimeters, 8 to 15 watts. Tuck your chin and get your head down, another 10 to 15. That's from the head alone, because a raised head creates a blunt body wake behind your shoulders that the rest of your bike then has to drag through the air. And every single one of those is a fit decision, not a purchase. If you race triathlon, this gets more specific and more expensive to get wrong. Here's the mistake I see constantly. Someone buys clip-on aero bars, bolts them to a road bike, drops the pads as low as they'll go, and calls it aero. What actually just happened is this. When you lower your torso without moving your saddle forward, you don't just get lower, you close your hip angle. Your knee comes up toward your chest at the top of every pedal stroke, and there's nowhere for it to go. Closed hip angle costs you 3 things: power output, breathing, and the one that actually decides your race: hip flexors that still work when you get off the bike. Below 90 degrees of hip angle, you are borrowing against your run. That's the entire reason a tri-bike exists. Road bikes run a seat tube angle of 72 to 74 degrees. Tri-bikes run 76 to 80. That steep angle rotates your whole body forward over the bottom bracket, so your torso can come down while your hip angle stays open. Same low front end, completely different hip. And when it's done right, the numbers are serious. A quality tri-specific fit typically buys an age grouper a CDA reduction of 3 to 6 hundredths. That's 8 to 20 watts at race pace, or roughly 1.5 to 4 minutes over a 90-kilometer bike leg. Full estimates land between 2 and 6 minutes over a 70.3. Show me a training block that reliably buys you 4 minutes. I'll wait. But, and this is the part the aero-obsessed crowd skips, an aggressive position costs 4 to 7% of your seated power. A moderate one costs 2 to 4. So a position that saves you 20 watts of drag but costs you 25 watts of power made you slower. The fastest position isn't the lowest one. It's the one you can hold, fuel from, and run off. If you've ever spent the back half of a long ride, shifting around on the saddle, shaking out a numb hand, or standing up not because the road went up, but because you couldn't sit there anymore, you already know your position is wrong. You've just been told that's what cycling feels like. It isn't. Numbness is not a rite of passage, it's a diagnostic signal. Transient numbness that clears in a few minutes is common. Numbness that's still there hours after you get off the bike means you have been repeatedly compressing nerve and vascular tissue, and that has a ceiling on how long you can keep doing it. The riders who last 20 years in this sport aren't the ones with the highest pain tolerance. They're the ones who fix the system early. Here's what a correct position actually looks like from the inside. Your weight sits on your sit bones, not your soft tissue. Your hands rest on the bars. They don't hold you up. Your shoulders are down. Your elbows are soft. You can breathe at threshold. And at the end of 4 hours, the thing that's tired is your legs. That's it. That's the whole goal. Make the legs the limiter, because the legs are the part you can train. So go back to the number we started with. 90% of what's slowing you down is air. 70 to 80% of that is your body. And the only thing that changes your body's shape in the air and whether you can hold it is fit. Everything else is the 20%. A professional fit runs somewhere in the $200 to $500 range and takes 3 to 6 hours. Against a wheelset, it's not close. Against a training block, it's not close. And it's the only upgrade that makes you both faster and more comfortable at the same time, which nothing else on your bike does. That's the argument. Now here's the part that actually matters. In the next video, I'm walking through every measurement on camera with numbers you can check on your own bike tonight. Saddle height 3 ways, knee angle, cleat position, reach, drop, and the tri-specific angles. No studio required. If you're an endurance athlete or someone looking to do their first 5K, marathon, triathlon, or even Ironman, we have a free community with everything you need from training plans, nutrition, course previews, coaching, and so much more. Sign up for free at saltmilefitness.com. I am J. Todd Jennings, and I will see you in the next one.